What better way to start a video than to not talk about us at all? LeBron James is going nuts at 33, averaging 33 a game, although he'll turn 34. When's his birthday, like December or something? I believe he has the same birthday as Tiger Woods or something like that. But he's not slowing down. We're not in the Eastern Conference, so I don't have to go with the whole LeBron is old, so now we can beat him storyline. But we can still give him some showcase nonetheless. Edy Davis on the Warriors is kind of interesting because they're a team that has struggled with rebounding and giving up offensive boards, and Edy Davis is one of the best rebounders in the league, of course. And while I don't think he's as good of a defender as like Bogut was at his best, he's still pretty okay. Is Tyreke Evans on the Clippers in this? Apparently he is. The Bucks are going crazy. Are they potentially title contenders? Is Jabari Parker's re-emergence after some injury stuff what Giannis needs as a number 2 guy to where these guys can just go nuts? That's apparently the case, as they've won 17 out of 21 games. Eastern Conference is heating up. You got them, you got whoever is on the Cavs at this point. I believe the Celtics were doing very well there as well. I think the Raptors were getting the screw job by 2K. There's always one team or multiple teams that get that. Some other things to look at. Jason Tatum's going nuts from outside, shooting over 50% from 3, which makes no damn sense. He's like super Otto Porter right now. Hopefully the Celtics give him the ball more often, but since they have him and Hayward and Kyrie and Jaylen Brown, a lot of guys to take shots. Lonzo is making his shots, his outside shots. The overall field goal percentage is still not very good, but 36% from outside is pretty good for Lonzo. We're almost to our team, okay? Last thing is, I mentioned Alfred Payton. We were going to check in on how he's doing. He's dropping a 7-4 for Utah every night. I assume as the backup point guard behind Ricky Rubio. It's good for Alfred, you know, he's getting paid. Our point guard thing's pretty good. I find a way to mention our point guard rotation in every video. Anyway, one of our point guards, that's not our point guard, that's Alonzo. He's going to the G League. He, as well as Devontae Graham, because we're kind of full on the rotation right now. Maybe as the year goes on and, I don't know, maybe if someone's not on the roster, they can come up. But for now, they're going to the G League so they can get some minutes under their belt. Both of those guys are older rookies. And now we are going to talk about our center situation for pretty much the rest of this video. 2 names. Marquese Chriss, former power forward, converted to a center. And then the other one, the dude we signed, Mitchell Robinson. These two have, I would say, decently different play styles. The thing is, maybe I've made it seem like I thought Robinson wasn't the best athlete in previous videos. He's actually a pretty okay athlete for a center. But as we remember, Marquese Chriss was converted from a 4 into a 5. So he has power forward athleticism, which is a bit different than center athleticism, if you will. Now that being said, he still needs to figure out the fundamentals, and I would say Robinson might be a little farther along defensively than Chriss is. But Robinson still has work to do as like a finisher and overall game, I would say. We're giving them both about 12 minutes a game. Equal opportunity, depending on their performances. Some will go up, some will go down. Of course, Tyson Chandler is still our starter. But as we do that, we are going to simulate about a month. And what you will see over this month is we finally fall back down to earth. We realize that we're the Phoenix Suns. I might not want to do all positions. Maybe point guard or center might be a better option because we have a lot of forwards in this team. One thing about this losing streak, there are a few games that are pretty close. There were 2 Wizards games, there was a Celtics game that was close, so we're not getting destroyed. I think that's progress. If we go back to these 2, their stats are pretty similar almost across the board. Rebounds per game, points per game, blocks per game are similar. The efficiency, there's a bit of a difference. Chriss has made more shots while attempting more shots than Robinson has. Robinson is a pretty damn good finisher around the basket, but Chriss is a bit better at nearly 80%, which I guess makes sense because he's more athletic than Mitchell is, and his plus-minus has also been better. So for right now, we are a better team when Marquese Chriss is in the game. I guess that could be seen in this game against the Hornets, as Chris had himself 8 points, 5 rebounds, and Robinson was a bit more low-key in this one. Robinson seems like the type of 5 who's a bit more straightforward game to game, whereas Chris might be a little bit more sporadic, which maybe makes sense, because when you're an athlete, sometimes you could just finish with 12 points from just alley-oops and transition buckets, whereas with Robinson, still a good athlete, but not as overwhelming as Chris is, not able to generate as many easy baskets game to game, whereas Marquese could just dunk on someone's head, which I'm pretty sure he does later on in this video. But Robinson, good nonetheless, you know. This one here against the Celtics, a better defensive team, neither one of them was able to do too much. I think with Robinson, he might have gotten overwhelmed by some of the Celtics' defense, because he missed 4 shots in this game. He was 1 for 5 from the field. Neither one of these guys has that high of an offensive ceiling. Shooting, dribbling, post moves, not totally there for either one, which is cool. I mean, I could picture a center by committee with these two moving forward, where they both play like 24 minutes a game or so. And as this season goes along, I will probably give Tyson Chandler less minutes, or maybe even buy Chandler out at one point, or just release him, because technically you can't buy guys out in 2K. This game against the Wizards, you'll notice that Chris had himself 3 block shots. I do think he's got potential there. When you can get up high in the air, and you're at least not a moron with how to position your arm, you should be able to block some shots, right? Now this one here, Chris did pretty well against the Nuggets. We got destroyed, but his 11 points were the second most on the team. And, ouch, Gary Harris. This is what I was talking about earlier. Gary Harris nearly falls out of the frame. It was that bad, that dunk by Marquese. I'm sorry for Gary. I'm sure that Chris is not. Yeah, I mean, Denver's not as good of a defensive team as the Celtics, so it kind of makes sense that he's able to score against them because he could do more transition stuff and more pick and rolls, whereas Boston would be better at stopping that type of thing. But Mitchell had himself a pretty damn good game against Houston. 9 points, 7 rebounds, that's good. 4 for 7 from the field. I'm trying to think of a comparison for Mitchell Robinson. Maybe like a more athletic Robin Lopez, which is probably some obvious player that I just can't think of. You know, the type of dude where the box score numbers are not going to jump out at you too crazy, but just a solid defender, makes the right plays, and he might finish with like 7 points, but he made you better in the process. You could be looked at as a not as good version of Mo Bamba, because he is similar in that sphere. He's not as good. He's a little more raw, I guess is what I would say. Whereas Mo Bamba, you see like the defensive instincts, whereas with Robinson, those instincts are there, but they have to be kind of coaxed a little bit more. Coaxed, is that even a term? I don't know. Both of those guys are doing their thing. Other things to make note of, Devin Booker is having himself a ball from 3-point range, as he's taken nearly 8 a game, actually over 8 a game, for over 40% from 3. This game against the Clippers, 6 for 13. That's very good. So he's getting his Steph Curry on, which shows that we should have a really good offense one day, with him and Michael Porter Jr., 2 really good shooters. Michael Porter did not get as much attention in this video because he got it in like the last 2 videos, so I figure why not stray away a little bit. And Dražen Bender, I didn't get a chance to talk about him too much here, but I think his stat line's kind of intriguing with the 10 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. I'll talk about him a bit more in the next episode of this series. But to continue the tradition of always mentioning Josh Jackson before we get out of here, 40% from 3 on 1 attempt a game. It's a start. Hopefully he can just get to like Andre Iguodala and Golden State levels of shooting, at least before this season, which is basically 35% from 3. Hopefully he can get there. Hopefully our center position becomes a little more clear in time. And I'm done.